Welcome into Extreme Radio, everybody. Presented by GracePointe Healthcare. Go to GracePointeHealthcare.com, request your appointment online. Mention you're with 8-Man Extreme, and you get $20 off your new patient office visit fee. GracePointe Healthcare, modern medicine the old-fashioned way. Spencer Tomset and James Shannon, the Lone Troops, doing today's show. Mr. Isaiah Austin is on fall break, so we will be bringing you a recap of the action from this last week and previewing next week as always, and skip the sensitivity again. Isaiah having his break, his final vacation right before we get into the thicket of the final week of the regular season as well as the postseason and all-star game. So let's go ahead, top to bottom on your helmet schedules, everybody, excluding our broadcast from Friday night. So we look at South Haven Christian School and Lighthouse. Lighthouse Christian got it done hosting the game, 66-14 over South Haven. And James, you know, you look at this score and it almost seemed like it was a complete flip of the mix because South Haven has a lot more depth on their bench than Lighthouse Christian does. But McDowell and Bond, it looks like they just couldn't be stopped against that South Haven secondary.
Yeah, and it's a tough year for South Haven. A lot of youth mixed with a lot of injuries. It's never a good combination. But like we pointed out Friday night, they kind of alternate. They've been alternating since 2015. They did really well in 2015, won the TACS championship, went to nationals. 2016, first year at MTAC, they went winless. Last year, of course, won the MTAC championship, only lost one game all year. And then this year they're struggling. So if you're a South Haven fan, I think you kind of look forward to next year, and hopefully you can do a lot better and have your young guys perform a lot better. It just hurt, having Kobe Rojo and Andrew Royalty back out, and a couple senior guys that could have really contributed, but they've got plenty of depth. They're losing some seniors for sure, guys like Enzo Savar and Nick Ambrose, along with other seniors, but and Frankie Gagliano being one of those seniors. But like I said, and then on the flip side for Lighthouse, it's bittersweet because that you won't be able to, if you're guys like Ricky McDowell, Michael Bond, some of your seniors, that you won't be able to go to the playoffs. But on the same hand, it's nice to pick up a win against a team that could be considered a rival. This rivalry goes way, way back. But it was a good, solid win for Lighthouse, kind of trying to build some momentum going into their game next Friday. Big matchup with Christian Community. Nothing playoff-wise is on the line right now. Just more so of a bragging rights game. CCS won last year. Lighthouse won 2 years ago. So, we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, and Lighthouse, as you said, they're playing in White House against Christian Community without any playoff impacts. And South Haven will host Franklin Christian Academy in their final week of the regular season. The Tennessee Heat went to the first overtime game in several years against the St. Andrews Suwannee Mountain Lions, and the Mountain Lions got their second win of the season, 20-19. One of the closest games we've seen this season for the Mountain Lions against anybody. And James, really great on Hargis and his guys to get that win as well. But the Tennessee Heat, one of the big contributing factors in that, as we learned, is that they're not playing a lot of their starters because they're trying to vouch for a good matchup as the number 2 seed against Webb. So a big impact on that loss was putting a lot of their starters on the bench to prevent injury.
Yeah, I know they had some of them on the bench, and they had one of their starters benched, or he was sitting for discipline reasons. And so, they had a little bit different setup, but I think it was a perfect storm. If you look at Suwannee, they're only 4 points away from being 4-4 on the season. 3-point loss to Bowling Green, and I'm sorry, they're 4 points away. They're 4 points away from being 4-3. A 3-point loss to Bowling Green and a 1-point loss to Lighthouse. And of course, those are still MTAC North games, so it doesn't affect their actual conference standing or division standing. But in terms of overall, 4-3 is a lot different than 2-5. It's just psychologically, it's a different situation, especially going into a big rivalry game this Friday night, Battle of the Boards. But a great win for Swanee. This was the first overtime game since 2013. And it's funny because Coach Hargis was actually an assistant during that game. It was between Swanee and I want to say Aaron Academy. And the two of them went to overtime. And Aaron Academy ended up coming out with the win. It was actually, I want to say it. I want to say it was during the regular season. I was not aware of the overtime rules just because of the length of time that it had been since an overtime game. But each team got a drive from the 10, and the game was tied at 12. The Heat started at the 10, were able to punch a touchdown in, got the extra point, and then the Swanee got a chance. They threw a touchdown to Larson Heisenrader and then went for the 2-point conversion. DeAndre Tate punched it in. So good solid win for Swanee and a good win for Coach Hargis and the boys. Tillman and Heisenrader, some seniors, Willis, Matthews, those guys. Good to see them pick up the win. And for the Heat, you got to wonder how this affects them psychologically headed into not so much next week's game, but then not so much this week's game, but next week's game against Tennessee School for the Deaf.
Yeah, the Heat facing the Tennessee School for the Deaf on Thursday. They have a 6-day turnaround for their game there, and then the Mountain Lions play their final game of the season on the road at the Webb School. We already covered those games in the North. Christian Community went on a bye week. Riverside, Webb, and Franklin Christian all on bye weeks. Lancaster Christian Academy, complete shutout of Franklin Classical School on senior night, 48-0. Complete shutout, got the job done on senior night. And Lancaster they've got one more game on the season next week in another Clash of the Knights, but really good on Lancaster to get their final win of the South, regardless of it not having any effect on their postseason, that number 2 seed.
Yeah, if you're Lancaster, you still want to pick up the win. You still want to get the dub and a good solid win for them. Of course, lost my train of thought there. Of course, Classical still struggling, throughout this year with their situation and things they've got going on. So, we knew that there was a very slight chance of them winning, but Lancaster just came out and they established their will on senior night. And Matthew Bowden had a really solid game. Deuce Bragg, another good game. So they've got pieces going into a matchup in 2 weeks, next week against CCS, and that game's going to have a lot of hype around it.
Yeah, it's going to have a lot of hype around it for sure as Lancaster faces off against Sacred Heart. And Classical, they have a bye week next week. I think they are gonna take that bye week since there's no other team they could play, and it looks like they're trying to get one more game set up the week of the playoffs just to give their guys one more game opportunity. The Tennessee School for the Deaf game got canceled on Thursday. They were going to be at the North Carolina School for the Deaf, but still inclement weather bogging down the majority of the southeastern coast. So their game got canceled there. So the Tennessee School for the Deaf, I believe, have only had 2 or 3 games on their season thus far. As far as we know, there's not going to be a cancellation for this upcoming Thursday night. Be really
they've only had 3 games so far. And of course, our thoughts and prayers with everyone dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Michael. I know my old head coach and the current defensive coordinator for CCS, Tommy Thornton. His parents actually live in Panama City. And so we were trying to get updates, making sure they were okay. And then the La Guana Christian Resort down there in Panama City, where they hold the 8-man national championship tournament. Thankfully, they were not affected and everything is intact there. And then my old coach's parents are safe. So our thoughts and prayers with everyone going through that situation.
Yeah, we have all our thoughts. That was one of the first questions I had this last weekend to James. Is the National 8-Man Tournament going to be still hosted in Panama City because of the aftermath? And according to Facebook, the resort is still intact and everything's still great with it. So glad to hear that they did not get damaged by it. But the amount of videos I've seen trying not to get too off track here, but there was one video that someone showed me. There was a house being constructed in Panama City, and someone shared a video on Facebook with that same structure that was still pending, just got torn down, unfortunately. It was in the middle of
It's
construction,
crazy.
torn down. So all of our thoughts and prayers going out to those, it, all those who were affected by Hurricane Michael, and be sure, for those of you listening, be sure to, in any way you can, contribute to help in the relief efforts. Sacred Heart, the Sacred Heart of Jesus High School Knights had a huge travel up to Bowling Green Christian Academy, and the Warriors,
Huge.
huge, as we did on Friday night's commentary. For the first time in franchise history, the Bowling Green Christian Academy Warriors have made it to the MTAC Bowl. They'll be playing against Riverside Christian Academy, but Bowling Green got the win at home, 52-24. And you want to say, James, that travel had a huge factor in it because Sacred Heart has only had 2 home games the entire season. They'll flip that around next year, and they'll have a lot of home games, and a good amount of teams are going to travel down to them. But it's also just the names that we kept repeating over and over on broadcast: Gage Holman, John Stock, Riley Davis, Tanner Brown. Those are the 4 cores of this team, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Both guys just managed to get the job done at home and make a historical feat for the Bowling Green Warriors.
Yeah, it's great to see in their 4th year and Coach Brown's 3rd year of being a head coach, them be able to achieve this and picking up 5 wins, potentially 6 wins against Riverside, then 7 in the bowl game. That would be an incredible feat, like I said, in the 4th year of a program. But, it really says a lot about Bowling Green because at the beginning of the game, they turned the ball over. They had to punt, one of the two. Sacred Heart went down and scored a touchdown, had a great kickoff, turnaround, got a safety. So they were up 10-0. And then after that, it was all Bowling Green the entire game. Sacred Heart scored a couple touchdowns on top of that. Truell, I think was his name, had a couple touchdowns for Sacred Heart. And of course, Jalen Brown had a good game. But, those guys just dug deep for Bowling Green and just came back and had a very substantial lead. If there's something you could say about Bowling Green, and of course, they struggled against CCS. At CCS, but then against Lighthouse, they were able to put up points. Against the Heat and Sacred Heart, South Haven. So they're able to put up points. So, heading in their matchup with Riverside, that's something Riverside has struggled with, is allowing teams to score. Even in wins, their defense still allows several scores. So it's going to be a really fun matchup between those two. And but a great win by Bowling Green. For Sacred Heart. Even with the loss, they're still 4-3, and they roll into a game with Lancaster. But even if they lose, they're still 4-4 for first-year head coach Judd Powers. It's an impressive feat, and you got to give him a lot of props. He started the year with 11 guys, and I think I counted 16 or 17 guys on the sidelines or on the team Friday night, and that's with one guy leaving the team. So a great job from him and his coaching staff of rallying that program together, bringing it back, and hopefully, they're going to have success over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's they'll have a good amount of success going through the rest of the years. Both franchises are going to just continue going up in their programs. Sacred Heart plays against Lancaster in Smyrna next week, and Bowling Green hosts Riverside. All right, we head on to Skip the Sensitivity. That disclaimer: it's James's opinions, my opinions alone. Doesn't reflect 8-Man Extremist Broadcasting Network. That disclaimer.
You should have done it at the beginning because the whole show is kind of Skip the Sensitivity today.
Yeah, it's anytime you and I are just talking to each other, it is Skip the Sensitivity. That's just usually how it ends up because Isaiah isn't on here. But, yeah. So,
we tend to sound off.
Yeah, just a little bit. All right, so we talked about it last week, James, of how the, it's kind of it's unfortunate that this is the first year in MTAC in a while. I'm not sure if it's in MTAC's entire history, but at least the first time in a while that the last week of the season does not have any impact on the postseason. And again, that's because the Lighthouse being declared ineligible, everything got locked in. But it's unfortunate kind of that there's no playoff spot on the line because the teams mostly know that they're just playing to get another game in for their guys. They're not excuse me, they're not playing to potentially get a playoff spot in. It's not as bare bones competitive football as it would be as in previous years. Um, but it's really interesting to see, these games. There's no playoff spot on the line. So I know that last week you expressed, it's good that the players at least know where they're going to go and can start studying the film, but it's also detrimental to the competition of the games that we have coming up this Friday.
Yeah, I'm a little, I don't want to say annoyed. I think that's a bad choice of words, but it's frustrating that you go into the last week of the season and there's no postseason spot. It's nice on one hand because teams can start prepping for it, and even us as a broadcast as a broadcast media outlet, we can kind of make plans for broadcasts. But I just don't. I think it speaks to the lack of competitiveness. And obviously, if Lighthouse was eligible, there would be a playoff spot on the line Friday night. But it's I think it kind of takes away from the competitiveness. Obviously, teams want the game. If you've got your senior night on Friday night, you want the game. If you're going to the playoffs, you want a game because you want to get your guys ready. It's tough for like Bowling Green and Riverside. I think that they definitely they I think they'll still play the game for sure. Even though they play each other back to back weeks, you still want to give your guys a competitive game and make it interesting between the two. And I think we'll know a lot more about how the bowl game is going to go after Friday night, after Bowling Green Riverside play the first time. But I do think that it's frustrating, and I think it shows the lack of competition in the league. I know earlier in the season we had Webb Lancaster, and then we had Heat CCS, so we kind of got those big playoff games out of the way. And even really, we talk about there not being any playoff spots on the line this week, but really next week, I mean, you look at it and there's two clear-cut favorites. Lancaster could pull the upset for sure, no doubt about it. Heat could pull the upset for sure, no doubt about it. But if you look at Webb and CCS, they are two of the. I think if you polled the head coaches, I think you would find out that those two are kind of the favorites. It's been a while since we've had two clear cut favorites, but I wish there was more competition, and I think a way to get more competition is to have a 16 playoff. But we won't get into that. But yeah, I think it's frustrating. I don't want to say because we're not going to see good football. I think you want the feeling of a playoff spot being on the line the last week of the season, and to not have that, I think it speaks to the lack of of competition, somewhat, that's been throughout the league this year. I mean, you had your three tiers, but outside of that, there's been quite a few blowouts.
Yeah, there have been a lot of blowouts this season, and it's really. One fan commented earlier on one of our streams. It was either one of our streams or a video, and said it's looking a lot like it's just CCS, Webb, and Lancaster, and everybody else is either low tier or not really in the mix. And at least the numbers show that's true. The numbers show that Webb and CCS, both of them are undefeated going into their final game. And Lancaster, their only losses to Webb. Otherwise than that, they're unbeaten. They're undefeated thus far. So it's I can agree with that comment. It's that we only have 3 top teams in MTAC this year because a lot of seniors were lost from all the clubs around the league. A whole bunch of people just lost. So it's I can agree with that. It's unfortunate that we're seeing so many blowouts and everything. But every school goes through it. Yeah,
And to answer you from earlier, I've actually done a little bit of research. The last year that there were not playoff spots up for grabs, the last week of the season, would have been 2014. You had Lighthouse Christian playing Christian Community. You had Lighthouse playing Grace Christian the last week of the season, and then Lighthouse ended up with the number 1 seed in the North. You had Franklin Christian Academy ending up with the number 1 seed in the South. They hosted Christian Community, who was 2 in the North, and then Grace Christian was number 2 in the South. and a easy win for Lighthouse over Grace, and then CCS barely got beaten by FCA, and that's how you got your FCA Lighthouse playoff game. And also really, back 2014, that was the last year that you had two clear-cut favorites for the championship. Lighthouse, you had the number one running back. Franklin Christian, you had the number one quarterback. So this year is it's taken about 3 years to get back to this point, but I think for the last 3 years we've had a lot more competition. The teams have been a lot more competitive within each other.
Yeah, they've been competitive for sure. And again, like I was saying, it varies per year. Each team cycles out their star players through the seniors that graduate, or in some cases like Lancaster, they've got a star quarterback in the 8th grade. They've got 4 so it naturally cycles in and out. So we'll definitely see over the next few years. Maybe CCS will still be a powerhouse. Maybe they'll lose a majority of their players, and they may flop down to the number 2 seed or to the bowl slot. Who knows? Because we saw that in 2016, where they got eliminated and had to go to the bowl game for the first time in however many years. But now they're right back on top.
They had never been to the bowl game. They'd been to the playoffs every year of the MTAC since 2008, and then they got knocked out by Lighthouse in 2015. They got beat because that playoff spot was up for grabs between Lighthouse and CCS. So then when Lighthouse beat CCS, CCS had to go to the MTAC Bowl against Riverside.
Yeah, so CCS is obviously the powerhouse that knows the 8-man football system and knows how to keep it working. And potentially that could flop easily. Who knows? We don't know at this point, but it's really going to be interesting to see how 8-man football phases through the next few years and how it plays out. We're just really excited to see how it goes. But yeah, in terms of the games, we talk about how no playoff spots are on the line. With games that don't really matter for the playoffs, such as Bowling Green and Riverside, they're playing this upcoming week, and they're going to play each other in the bowl. I know we talked about it on broadcast, and you said give these guys another game, but just to clarify for those who didn't tune in on Friday, do you think they should cancel that game since they're playing each other in the bowl?
Negative. Bowling Green still has yet to have. I know they had somewhat of a senior night Friday night, but they weren't able. They didn't have a senior night, I don't believe, for Tanner Brown and Riley Davis and John Stock. So I think they actually just did all the senior girls Friday night, and then I think they're doing senior boys this Friday night. But no, you want to have those teams playing each other. I mean, you look at guys like John Stock and John Trehoon, who have been playing each other for 3 years now. They have a friendship, not even just from the All-Star game, from knowing each other, but then outside of that, playing each other for several times. You don't want to cancel the game. Obviously Bowling Green has plans going on, and you want to give your guys another game. Like you said, they're not playing in the playoffs. In the MTAC Bowl, there's really, there's no kind of reward. It's just an extra game, which I disagree with. I think there should. Do what?
Both teams get plaques in the MTAC Bowl. They get plaques, so they get something.
See, I'm an advocate of putting a monetary amount, but for both teams, and letting it go towards their schools or their athletic programs. But anyways, that's besides the point. But no, you don't cancel the game. Just, the guys want the extra game. They're going to want to play. If they don't want to play, you don't have to, I guess you could walk away from the team, but I don't see anybody doing that.
Yeah, I can understand that, because there's the even though you're in favor of putting money in the MTAC Bowl, have a potential league sponsor on that one. Right now, MTAC doesn't have any sponsors, so it's the really interesting thing to see if they'll ever do anything to improve the MTAC Bowl, give people more motivation to play that game and such. Because I mean, at the end of the day, it gives the seniors one more game. Because they're out of the playoffs, it gives them one more game. But at the same time, teams who are out of the MTAC Bowl, all they do is they just coordinate. They just coordinate another game at the end of the season. They're just like, hey, you guys want to pick up one more game since you didn't make the playoffs? Why not just do that instead of eliminate the MTAC Bowl, since all you get is a plaque?
Well, and you almost wish that the league would pull the trigger on changing things last minute and saying, listen, this year we're going to switch to a 16 playoff and we're going to have Bowling Green travel to Lancaster. We're going to have Riverside play the Heat. And obviously, Riverside Heat was a great game. Bowling Green, Lancaster, I don't know how that game would go. Let them play each other. Then the winners play the winner of Bowling Green, Lancaster would play either Webb or CCS and then vice versa.
Yep.
I really wish they'd pull the trigger on this because I think an FCA Sacred Heart MTAC Bowl would actually be pretty good. I think both teams would enjoy having the extra game. But again, they're not going to do that. They're not going to change it. But hopefully they change it for next year. But yeah, I mean, as a senior, you don't want to cancel a game because I know for me, thinking through my senior year, if I would have heard that they were going to cancel a game, that would have been a killer for me because I think you've got to keep that game. You got, as a senior, you've got to get every game you can and play every game you can because that's the only time you're going to get to do it for the rest of your life.
Unless you're pursuing football at the collegiate level. Unless
true, but I'm saying at a high school level with those guys that you've played 8 games with and you practiced all summer, and for some of these guys that have been together for several years, you want every chance to play with them that you can.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting thing to look at, and hopefully they'll make it a 6-team playoff so more teams get more chances to get a game in. But we're definitely going to see how it goes. We'll see if the conference decides to change anything. Who knows? Anyway, that ends it with our skip the sensitivity portion since we already talked about what we want to do, and time to go preview the games. I can't believe I'm saying this, James. I really can't. Before we get into these predictions, it's week 11 of the regular season. The playoffs are in almost under 14 days.
It seems like this season, like on one hand, it's kind of drugged by, but on the other hand, it looks like just yesterday we were saying, okay, listen, we're getting ready for game 1. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, we're on game. I want to say this is our 17th game we've broadcasted this year. I'm going to look back, but this season is just completely flown by.
Yeah, I'm sure James will get the tally for us on that. But yeah, we broadcasted, I think, 17 games at this point, and we're on track to do, I think, 22 or 23 with including the postseason.
So I was off a little bit because we weren't able to do a couple Tennessee School for the Deaf games and the Swanee game, a couple Swanee games. We actually are doing game 15 Thursday night and then game 16 on Friday.
Yep. So game 15
lost about 3 games. It knocked us down a little bit, but still 16 games in 11 weeks is still really, really impressive.
Yeah, managed to cover as many teams as we could in the previous 10 weeks, and got 4 more teams we're covering for week 11. So it's going to be fantastic. All right, I have Isaiah's predictions via text. I have what he's predicting, and I'm going from top to bottom on the helmet schedule here, so follow along. Bowling Green Christian Academy, again, they host Riverside Christian Academy, and they're going to be playing each other back-to-back weeks because they're both in the MTAC Bowl. His prediction, Bowling Green is going to beat Riverside 58-30. That's Isaiah's prediction on that one. So he's on the Bowling Green train. What about you, James? What do you think about this matchup of what about you think about this one of 2 matchups for the season for Bowling Green and Riverside?
Well, I do agree with him. I think Riverside picks up the win, and obviously
no. He says Bowling Green is going to win 58-30.
Oh, he's picking Bowling Green.
Yeah,
okay, then we don't agree with this. I've been a fan of Bowling Green this season. I'm also a fan of Riverside, and I think I pick up win number 4.
You're thinking Riverside's going to take that one. Yeah, looks like you and Isaiah.
And let me point this out that again, I made these predictions in July, and I've missed on some teams. I missed on Riverside and South Haven and CCS, but my prediction for Lancaster is going to be correct at 7-1. I think it's a 7-1 for Riverside with a win on Friday night. It'll be 4-5. Which is again my prediction. So I mean, I've picked a couple teams right. Bowling Green, I missed a little bit. I had them at 4-5, which technically they could still be. They could still be 4-5.
They
I
could
think.
be.
Wait, let me see. So they're 5-3 right now. Okay, well they would be 5-4. So I would have if they lose, they'll be 5-4. I'll be off one game. So to predict the entire season from July, that's kind of impressive. I'm just saying.
Off
Not to
by
toot,
one.
not to toot my own horn. I was one game off with Franklin Classical. I said they would be 1-7. They're 0-8. So I mean, I was one game off with them, but they easily, they could have won the FCA game. I missed on Sacred Heart pretty badly. Swanee, I said they'd be 3-5. They're 2-5 right now. So I'll be a game. So I mean, I'm within a game of most of these teams. FCA, I said they'd be 2-7, and right now they're what? Let's see, what's FCA's record?
I think they have
FCA's 2-6,
and then they've got their last game against South Haven, so they could be 2-7.
So they could be 2-7. So most of these teams, and like I said, Lancaster 6-1. They got Sacred Heart coming up. So I mean, I hit on some of my predictions. I was off on the Heat. I said thought the Heat would do a little bit better. If you flip flop the Heat and CCS, that's my predictions. So just flip flop the two of them.
Yeah, but you're still 2 games down to Jonathan Thompson. So
you're
still 2
again.
games down.
He's able to pick week by week. If I was able to pick week by week, I would be 5-6 games ahead of him.
I mean, you are able to pick week by week. You just decided to do preseason predictions.
I decided to stick to my preseason predictions. So, you know what? If I lose by 2 games in a prediction battle and I picked the games in July and he picked week to week, I'm good. It's 2 games.
Yeah, 2 games off. That's not too bad.
That's very psychic-ish.
Okay, well, back on track. Isaiah's got Bowling Green. You've got Riverside. For South Haven and FCA, both teams again they don't. Neither of them are going to the postseason. Neither of them are going to the bowl game. Just picking up another game for their seniors. Isaiah has FCA beating South Haven 24-14. So James, obviously FCA has had their struggles this season, and they don't have the lineman strength that they used to. And South Haven has had their struggles as well, where they've been able to get good victories against teams, or South Haven has not been able to get any good victories this season, but they've had some fairly close games. But with South Haven, again, I think they have a better amount of numbers on their bench than FCA does, but it's going to be really interesting to see how that game goes down.
Yeah, it will. And I've got South Haven picked on this one. I think John Buchanan's going to have a good game, as well as Sonny Reed. And FCA has other weapons, but I think South Haven picks up the win on this one to close out the season. Their last home game, senior night, I think they send off the seniors that they have, Savar and Ambrose. I think they send them off with a win.
Yeah, there's potential to do that. We'll see if they pull it out.
I think Gagliano, because I think this is the perfect defense for Gagliano to go off against. And I think FCA's defense in terms of pass defense, they are solid. I mean, you got Aces Sheets and Andy Reid. You got other guys that are stepping up. But I think in terms of run defense, every team has run all over them, been able to run the football on them. And I think South Haven is no exception. So I got South Haven winning this one.
Yeah, we'll see if South Haven can get the victory at home on senior night against FCA. You got South Haven. Isaiah has FCA. All right, Heat Tennessee School for the Deaf. That's a Thursday game. Tennessee School for the Deaf, they've had extra rest because of their game being canceled last week. Isaiah has the Heat beating the Tennessee School for the Deaf 32-20. And again, James, the Tennessee Heat, they're resting their starters because they're preparing for the playoffs. So we're going to see how they perform with their backups, getting them, some game time and such. But Tennessee School for the Deaf, they're hungry for another win.
I think they learned their lesson. I think the Heat learned their lesson against Swanee in terms of not taking teams seriously. And I'm not saying that they didn't take them seriously. I'm just saying I think they'll come into Thursday night's game. I think the starters will play at least the first half, at least the seniors. And that way, going into senior night, going into the senior night ceremonies at halftime, you don't have guys that just rode the bench the first half. So I think come second half, they'll start phasing in some backups. Tennessee School for the Deaf has struggled with injuries, and I think that that'll show Thursday night. I've got Tennessee Heat picking up the win, but I'm really excited to see this, and I hope it's the first of many Tennessee School for the Deaf MTAC matchups that will happen on a regular basis. The last time they played an MTAC team was St. Andrew Swanee in 2014. So I'm looking forward to some more MTAC Tennessee School for the Deaf games coming up in the future, possibly.
4 years since the Tennessee School for the Deaf have played an MTAC team, and it's going to be special this Thursday night for that. All right, CCS Lighthouse. We thought this was going to be a playoff matchup. Not quite the case this time around, and and CCS hosting Lighthouse this year, and that score that Isaiah has, he believes CCS is going to win 48-20. And again, Lighthouse, they're playing for nothing. CCS is playing for nothing aside from, well, CCS is playing to keep their second regular season undefeated record in a row. And Lighthouse is looking for, just another win, just trying to get another win on their schedule. It's going to be an interesting matchup to see how it is, especially, I believe, is it senior night or homecoming night for CCS that week? I think it's one of the two, but it's going to be an interesting match.
It's probably going to be senior night, and of course, that's where they'll recognize Nathaniel Rowley, Zach Rogers, other seniors who have really stepped up. Jackson Daughter, David West. So they'll recognize some guys. But I mean, if you're going to tell me that Lighthouse is not coming into this game trying to ruin CCS's unbeaten season, I'm gonna call you crazy. And for CCS, this will be the second year in a row that with a win they'll be undefeated in the regular season. And I don't really see I think Lancaster could be a dark horse, but I think there's a big matchup brewing between Webb and CCS for the championship, and barring an upset again. And here's the thing: I think Lancaster and the Heat are both capable of an upset. But anyways, back to the game. Lighthouse, like you said, they're not really playing for a whole lot. They're playing for a dub. Ricky McDowell, Michael Bond, Dedrick McLean. This is their last game of their career, high school game of their career, and so they're going to want to pick up the dub. But I think CCS picks up the win on this one.
Yeah, both of you guys with CCS on that one, as it goes to their likely their senior night, as they've already had their homecoming game against Bowling Green. The Sacred Heart of Jesus High School Knights take another long road trip, and they head up to Smyrna to face off against the Lancaster Christian Academy Knights. And the Knights, they only have one loss on their season to Webb in the South. And again, they've locked the number 2 seed. They're going to be playing against CCS in the playoffs, not this coming Friday, but the following Friday. And Isaiah has Lancaster winning 48-14 over Sacred Heart. But James, both clubs are. This is the only time this season that Lancaster and Sacred Heart they're colliding as both of the new teams in the league, in terms of both of them being the new football teams in the league. Sacred Heart officially allowed back into the league after being barred from the league from the events in 2016. Lancaster, they've been in MTAC for other sports. They just decided not to do 8-man. They decided this year to finally participate in 8-man football, and it's really going to be great to see these guys collide, especially because of the surprises that they've had this season, and how much they've shaken up the league in their wins and losses. So I'm really excited to see how this game plays out. But again, Isaiah has Lancaster winning 48-14.
I've also got Lancaster winning, and I think that again, really great for Sacred Heart and Coach Powers to see where they started the football program and where they're at now. I would be interested to see a Sacred Heart CCS game happen because it was supposed to kick off the season, and then it got forfeited or canceled by Sacred Heart, and that's part of why they're not eligible for the postseason. But along with losses to the Tennessee Heat and Bowling Green Christian, but these two teams, they played each other last year as 11-man teams. I want to say they played 2 years ago as 11-man teams as well. Well, no, Sacred Heart was still 8-man. So they played each other 11-man last year in the other conference that they had started. and they have a little bit of history against each other. Like you said, being the first, the brand new teams into the league, and this could kind of be a quiet rivalry that no one, it doesn't really have any impact on the postseason. But if you look at Sacred Heart, they really don't have a rival. Lancaster kind of has a rival in Lighthouse, but then Lighthouse's rival is CCS for rivalry week. So this could be a matchup that we get from now on. Lancaster Sacred Heart to close out the year, and to be honest, I wouldn't argue at all. I'm really excited for this game. I'm hyped for this game, but I do think Lancaster picks up the win.
So both you and Isaiah having Lancaster pick it up against Sacred Heart. And the last game that we have to give predictions on is Webb and Swanee. Isaiah has Webb beating Swanee 42-14. Webb would have their first undefeated season in a long time.
2013.
2013, yeah. So their first undefeated season in 5 years. So they're looking for that to occur for their franchise. But Swanee is hyped off of that overtime win against the Heat. They're really off of a high against that win against the number 2 seed in the North, who's going to be playing Webb next week. So Swanee is looking to pull an upset down in Bell Buckle. But Webb may just be more poised to succeed because of how much strength they've had over the last 10 weeks. So it's really interesting to see how both of these teams will perform. But Webb, with the hosting it at home, they may be poised for more success.
Listen, Webb is a dominant team, but if they're not careful and if they don't watch themselves, Swanee's are going to get up for this game, and they got up for it last Friday night. They took it to the Tennessee Heat, picked up the dub. They obviously won against Classical a couple weeks ago, and like I've said before, they could have beaten Bowling Green, and they could have beaten Lighthouse. Just there at the end of the game, couldn't pull it off. And so if they're not careful, they're going to get upset. I've got Swanee picked for this one. You got to pick an upset, a crazy upset every week. This is my crazy upset of the week. If it happens, and it doesn't really impact the playoffs though, because both Lancaster and Webb will still have a loss, and that would Webb still holds the tiebreaker, so it's not going to affect the playoffs any. But I think it affects Webb's psyche heading into the postseason. And if Swanee picked up the win, obviously they wouldn't get into the bowl game or the playoffs, but that would be huge for them, picking up 2 or 3 wins there at the end of the season, and it'd be a great momentum builder heading into next year. But yeah, I've got Swanee picked, and we'll see what happens Friday night in the battle of the boards.
Now, to keep in mind, you're saying you're pulling Swanee to get the upset, but that's only because you were way off on predicting Webb in the preseason. You thought that they didn't have any strengths.
Right. When I go back and look, I had Webb predicted. Let me double check. I had Webb predicted to go 2-6. I had them predicted to have wins against both Franklin teams, and that's it. So obviously they proved me wrong. They shocked me this year. They've shocked everybody this year, or some people. But yeah, I do think though. I think there's a legitimate chance that Swanee could pull the upset.
I can't wait.
And I'll tell you why. Is this offense that Swanee runs, that they've been running this ground and pound, if they can run this offense and they can keep the ball out of Webb's hands and not turn the ball over, they can easily eat up 6, 7, 8 minutes a quarter. And if they can score on those drives, if they can slow the pace down, and if they can dictate the pace of the game, they have a legitimate chance of winning.
They might. I hope that this would be hilarious to happen for the second year in a row. If Webb ends up winning the MTAC championship, they hoist a trophy, and then one of their players shouts, "Who said 2-6?" Just like one of the South Haven players did last
South
year.
Haven, yeah.
Yep, yeah. I would love for that to happen.
I guess if I predict you to go 2-6, then it's kind of like a blessing in disguise.
And what'd you predict CCS at this year? What was it, positive record, like 6-2?
I actually had I'm looking back through it, and I think I misspoke. I think originally I had said 5-4, but I've got them here at 7-2. I think they had. I thought they would have losses against the Heat, and then obviously I missed on South Haven, and I thought South Haven would be a lot better, so I had them losing to South Haven. But I'm off on a couple games for CCS, but it's all good.
So basically, confirmed here, ladies and gentlemen, he's that blessing in disguise. He's saying Webb's going to win the championship. Christian community will get upset in the playoffs, and we'll have a battle of the South in the MTAC championship. That's what James's prediction.
That's not what I'm predicting at all.
I mean, if we're going based off of your blessings in disguises and going by how it's been when you've predicted a team at 2-6 and predicted them to do really well in the past, then by virtue, it's going to be flip-flopped. It's a battle of the South teams in the championship, whereas last year was a battle of the North.
Yeah, but that's not how it's going to be.
At least
more than likely, barring now, how crazy would a double like 2016 double upset Lancaster over CCS, Heat over Webb? Hey, that would still be a really good game, and we'd still get our Webb CCS matchup.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, Webb CCS would still play each other. That reminds me of the 2016 consolation game between Lighthouse and FCA. Both of the coaches looked at each other and they're like, "Hey guys, you want to just go bowling?" They're just.
I actually remember that.
Yeah,
I remember that. That was crazy.
Yeah, they both look at each other. It's like, we both don't want to be here at this third place game. You want to go bowling? Let's just go bowling right now. That was one of the fun moments in 8-man football.
It's kind of true though. I mean, the consolation game, on one hand, you want to give your guys an extra game, but on the other hand, it's like, what are we really playing for?
Well, you look at it last year, it was obvious when Webb and FCA played in it, Webb did not want to play in that consolation game. Like they at least from what we had the conversations with the coaches and such, they did not want to play in that consolation game, and they made it obvious by letting.
But at the same time, they didn't forfeit. They went through with it, and if you're going to go through with it, you might as well try to win it.
Well,
which they could have.
They would have gotten fined by the league per bylaws if they had if they had forfeited it, they would have had to pay a fine because it's a playoffs.
Well,
you have to play.
Okay, so you're still gonna play. Well, it's not a playoff game; it's a postseason game. But if you're gonna play it, you might as well try to win. That's just me though.
Yeah. I could agree with you, but like I was saying, just from last year, it's prevalent that some players didn't want to play in the consolation game. I mean, we've even heard some of the coaches don't want to play the MTAC bowl game. We've heard some of that as well.
It's crazy. It's a crazy situation, and again, I think if it's just in terms of having an extra game, then it's frustrating. And again, the MTAC bowl. The origination of it was supposed to be like a Division II playoffs, Division II championship game, but then you had teams claiming, "Hey, we're MTAC champions," or "Hey, we're going to the playoffs." It's like, yeah, you're 2-6. You're not really going to. So that's why they eliminated that. But I think you have to. I think you have to. What's the word I'm looking for? You have to better yourself. You have to, I don't know what word I'm looking for.
Improve?
You have to develop. You have to evolve. Evolution is not a bad word. You have to evolve as a conference, and I think part of the natural evolution for the next step of the conference, like I've always said, 16 playoff, and if you're going to do the MTAC Bowl, put money on it and say, not in a bad way, but get a sponsor and say, listen, we're going to give the winning team, it might not mean much, but give the winning team $2,000, give the losing team $1,000, and there you go. Bam. That way you earn money for your athletic program.
Yeah, but then you have the playoff teams asking, why are we not getting any money from the consolation game? Why are we not
the playoff team? And guess what? If you're in the consolation game, you didn't win in the playoffs. Shocker! Breaking news. So if you lose in the playoffs, I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about. Very interesting to think about. Well, that's time to reveal our broadcasts of the week before we sign off for this Sunday. Time to reveal our broadcast this week. James already leaked it like week 2 or week 3 of the season to get the hype up.
It's because I'm hype about this game.
I mean, I'm hyped about it as well. But the goal was to not reveal any broadcasts.
I'm turnt for this game.
Yeah, turning onto I-24 and turning off to get to the school. So
boom.
Thursday's game, Well, James and I will have the call from Mount Juliet or Mont Juliet, however you pronounce it. I'm never going to remember.
It's okay. Hold up. We got to fix this. It's Mount Juliet. The emphasis is on Jew. Mount Juliet. Say it again.
Mount Juliet.
Bam! Got it.
Welcome to Mount Juliet, anyways.
No. There is no X. You are going to drive me insane with that.
That's the point. Well, I mean, hey, you know how many people you've driven insane by saying Dietz?
Yeah, one school. You've insulted a town of thousands of people. And if Chad Withrow heard you, he might just slap you. So it's Mount Juliet and it's Dietz.
We'll be live from MJCA Thursday night. The Tennessee Heat host the Tennessee School for the Deaf in what we know is going to be a fantastic matchup. And again, it's been 4 years since a team since a team in the Middle Tennessee Athletic Conference has played the Tennessee School for the Deaf. So we're really excited to see how this matchup goes.
Listen, shameless plug here.
Oh boy!
If y'all can't, I know a lot of teams are going to be practicing, getting ready for the last week of the season. That's fine. You know, a lot of teams in terms of drive time, it's not feasible for you to go to the game. But if you need to watch the broadcast because this is truly something you don't want to miss. It's just going to be a great environment. I wish I'd gotten the chance to play against, Tennessee School for the Deaf or a team that's from a school for the deaf. I think it'd just be a cool experience. But y'all for real, I'm excited. I might not even get to go to this game, and I'm still going to watch it because that's how excited I am for this game.
Wait a minute. I just said you and I are on call for Thursday.
Well, I guess I am going to be at the game.
Yeah, you and I are on call for that one because you know that Isaiah doesn't do Thursday games. He can't make it.
I take for granted that Isaiah's doing the.
Yeah. So Thursday, James and I will be on call for that one. We're excited to see that game. And then Friday night, we actually just decided this today. We've been talking about it the last several weeks because of the playoffs being locked in essentially and trying to figure out we finally locked it in today, and all of us agreed by committee on this one. We're going to be live from Smyrna. We're going to be calling that Sacred Heart Lancaster game, and we're really excited to call that one. We're really excited to see both teams first year in the conference for Lancaster and first time back into the conference for Sacred Heart. So we at least cover Sacred Heart one more time before they end their season, and Lancaster right before they travel on the road to Christian Community. So it's going to be a really fantastic bowl game on Friday night.
Hey Spencer,
I'll have the call for that one. Oh boy, shameless plug.
You know why Isaiah hasn't been able to do Thursday night games this season?
He has a class.
What's this week? What's happening this week?
I mean, it is fall break.
Bam. So he doesn't have a class Thursday night.
No, but Columbia State's fall break is only Monday, Tuesday.
That is a trash fall break.
No, the reason it's only Monday, Tuesday is because we as students get Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off for Thanksgiving. That's why, in the spring break is a full week.
That is a garbage fall break.
I mean, the college policies have different times for when they take off. So I mean, hey, granted, we get off the first week of December. Those are our final exams, but all of the schools get out the third week. So when we get we get a longer break in between semesters. So
True that.
Trash. All right,
listen,
shameless
plugs. I want to go ahead.
Here we go.
Okay, another shameless plug. I want to go ahead and start hyping this up. 2 weeks from today. First off, we should know a lot more about All-Star situation. We're not forgetting about All-Star. We're still locking in a coach, and we're still locking in an alumni captain. We have a coach and an alumni captain locked in. So hopefully we'll know a lot more about that. We're not going to make this just turned from an announcement to from a hype to announcement. We will announce all of the players going to the All-Star game the week of. We'll do a mock draft, Isaiah and I. And so you won't want to miss that. But in 2 weeks, we have our 100th YouTube video, excluding our games from this year. So you're not going to want to miss the show. It's going to be a good show.
All right. Go ahead. Get the rest of your shameless plugs out.
I don't have any more shameless plugs. I'm done.
You forgot the most important one.
Oh! Hold on. I got to make the noise.
Oh, boy.
Nope, that's not it. Ding, ding, ding. Do you have the bell on? You're listening to the show. Listen, all you got to do, come down, click on our channel, hit subscribe, turn the bell on, and you'll be notified whenever we go live with a game, a show, whenever our highlights upload, whatever we decide to put on YouTube, you'll know about it first. So get the bell on.
Yep, good. I was about to be mad because you had almost forgotten that one. But yeah, get your bell on, guys. And again, we'll be live Thursday. Tennessee School for the Deaf travels to Mount Juliet for get a clash with the Tennessee Heat. And then Friday night, we'll be live from Smyrna. Lancaster Christian Academy Knights face off against the Sacred Heart of Jesus High School Knights. Another clash of the Knights, as we saw earlier in the season with Sacred Heart and Classical. So that, if you, I'm about to kick this guy off the show for saying yeet on air.
I said it twice.
You still said it.
True that. I apologize.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, that'll wrap it up for Extreme Radio, presented by GracePointe Healthcare. Go to GracePointeHealthcare.com, request your appointment online, mention your Dayman Extreme, and you get $20 off your new patient office visit fee. GracePointe Healthcare, modern medicine the old-fashioned way. For our producer out at a ski resort, Isaiah Austin, on behalf of James Shannon, all the hardworking men and women that make 8-Man Extreme successful, I'm Spencer Thompson. We'll see you live Thursday for the Tennessee School for the Deaf Vikings colliding with the Tennessee Heat, and for the Lancaster Christian Academy Knights clashing with the Sacred Heart of Jesus High School Knights. The final week of the regular season is upon us. The playoffs are around the corner.
See ya!